So, as far as the as far as the sources that were a big influence to you, you've talked a lot about Stoker's notes and so on, and there's a great deal of really interesting material in the epilogue to the book in terms of how you featured these. What was the biggest surprise for you when looking over Stoker's notes for the original novel?
I mean, first of all, how meticulous he was in organizing language. He actually created, not created. He researched the whole Yorkshire dialect so that any scenes that were going on in Whitby were all created. So all the seamen were talking and used the right dialect. He did the same thing for the gypsies in any of the scenes over in Romania. He had the foods right, the clothing right. I mean, just think 7 years of a guy with an idea that had never been created before, and he didn't know where he was going with it. So the sheer volume of random thoughts was incredible, and also his list of bibliography. There were certain works that he really used, which is, oh boy, Baring Gould's Werewolves.
Sabina Baring Gould,
yeah,
Werewolves and Vampires
right.
in Transylvania.
He used that one a lot, and then Emily Gerard did a story on the different sort of mythologies of this sort of the land beyond the forest, and talked about the Sholomach, which is this sort of mythical school where Dracula may have become, I call it the ground zero, the beginning of Dracula, which is sort of an interesting concept. So he really had access to all kinds of things, and he just noted. What bothers me is what's not there. I mean, it sort of bugged me that one manuscript, 125 pages of notes. You know, where is the rough draft and the next draft and the next draft? You know, probably with all the work that he did at Lyceum Theatre, you know, in bins of paper, or his wife threw them away when she was, you know, cleaning things up. Where's all the rest of the stuff? And other than that Icelandic preface, where's the stuff that, you know, that Bram sort of commented on about what he was doing? That's what sort of struck me. Is not, I mean, some of what's there, but what's not there. I would have loved to have seen some of the rough drafts, to actually see what gets pulled out, because there's this argument about where Dracula's guest fits in. Some of us think it's sort of a test. You know, if you look at it, there's no way they go right together seamlessly. It could have been connected to an earlier one, but also could have been just one of his warm-ups for this. You know, just writing a story in that part of the world. We know he was thinking about writing it in Germany first, then Austria. And then he got exposed somehow, and there's discussion about this visiting Hungarian professor, Armas Vambari, that would have told him all kinds of stuff. But I'm sort of of the school of thought of Dr. Elizabeth Miller. Unless it's in the notes, we don't know for sure. We can speculate, but there's no way Bram was going to write down all the anecdotes from people that told him stuff over 7 years. But when he wrote them down, you know, we know for sure what he was thinking at the time. But it's the absence of that stuff that gets me.
So there may be a cache hidden out there of additional Stoker notes to Dracula yet to be revealed.
Well, this manuscript was actually found in a farmhouse in Pennsylvania, in a chest with rat bones in it. Why was it in Pennsylvania? We know he came over and visited Walt Whitman from time to time. Maybe he sent one over, have a look at it, and it ended up in somebody's collection, and it was just, you know, literally unearthed. Maybe they're somewhere else, just like you hear, you know, yard sales in the back of a picture frame. You get the Constitution, you know, maybe there's more Stoker stuff hanging around.
I know one of the things that Bram Stoker had been reading when he was sort of conceiving of the physical description of his character, which is, as you pointed out, one of the huge disparities between the novel and sort of subsequent, much more romanticized interpretations of Dracula, you know, Bela Lugosi, for example, Frank Langella, was Lombroso and Nordau's works on criminal physiology and so on. This, you know, what's now considered a pseudoscience that was a huge influence in the late 19th century.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there are really a paucity of physical descriptions of the character in your book, whether this was a kind of deliberate attempt to move away from, you know, from that kind of route of Stoker's novel.
You know, again, speculation. We know that Bram was really into technology and change, and that's why you see, you know, and I may be deflecting, but bear with me, you see the first phonograph used for notes. We see telegraph, use of telegraph. Speculation that the only way these band of heroes could actually defeat the supernatural being was to use high tech at the time. And that was high tech at the time. Blood transfusions at the time were not known of very much. I mean, blood typing wasn't done. So Bram was kind of a cutting-edge guy. Even though he was in an era where change was happening, he was embracing that. But we also know, or we speculate, that he was a member of this, people think he was a member of this Golden Dawn. I had this collector, another cousin, who'd done a lot of work for him, or looking at him in Dublin, said, that could be. We do have a record of him going to one meeting of this order with two of his friends who were members. And so therefore he was written down in the minutes as attending a meeting, not that he'd become a member. Nothing wrong with it, because we also know he was quite a mind. It's where all this stuff came from that made this mind the way it was. But he was interested in the occult as well. So what was working in his mind to come up to where he was today, I think, was a combination of his sort of interest in technology and the occult. To sort of, arrive at where he did with his descriptions of people, and obviously the work on the human body that happened with Seward in the asylum and so on.
Yeah, but the Golden Dawn connection is not one that I was aware of, actually, and it's quite interesting given the interest of other members of the organization. Arthur Edward Waite, more of a scholar, Aleister Crowley, more of a, kind of showman, I guess, and
yeah.
charlatan to some degree, but the interest in blood and ritual magic and this sort of thing, which really plays a strong background note throughout the entire novel. Bram Stoker seems preoccupied with the physiological characteristics of blood, as they're understood at the end of the 19th century, but also with the kind of mystical and even religious applications of the term. Now, one of the things that struck me throughout was the many close parallels between the novel and the Coppola version of the film in 1992, which you mentioned. I just wondered if you could talk about, the relationship you have with that film.
It's funny, it's not one that Ian refers to a lot. He likes the Louis Jourdan BBC series, and he's such a movie guy that he sort of talks about these things all the time. I liked it personally. I thought it was besides, well, first of all, Coppola didn't ask anyone in the Stoker family to call it Bram Stoker's Dracula. We'll just get that. But he did an interesting thing, like we did. I can't fault him on merging. How do you state at the beginning of the movie how Vlad Tepes becomes a vampire? And he did. That's pretty interesting. I think that's pretty cool. And we did something similar. So there are some similarities between you got to reach for something, and he came up with a plausible one, which is a little bit based on some of the things in Search of Dracula that Ian's mentors, McNally and Florescu, did. The romance between Dracula and Mina is something obviously we really pick up on as well. Did we sit back and look at the movie and write the book? No, it's probably more like 18 movies that Ian had in the back of his mind and decided that all these little pieces he was going to have to put in. But I do respect the movie, other than stealing of the name.